welcome to the Intuitively Wild podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Levine. Living intuitively wild is about coming back home to ourselves. Here, we talk about how to live connected to ourselves, others, and nature, and make a commitment to radical authenticity, vulnerability, and acceptance. On this podcast, we delve into a wide range of topics that span the human experience. We peel back the layers and talk about the things that are often not talked about. This is a space for us all to walk and wander this path of life together. Let's dig into our roots and go deep. Ellen and Michelle, welcome to the podcast. This is so fun for me. It feels like a little reunion because we would have our meetings all the time when we were working together, and I miss you guys so much. So thank you for taking the time to do this and just being true angels in my life. Like, you guys have been such a support system in this process, even in ways that you don't realize. I'm just so grateful for you guys. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having us. We're super excited to be here. It does feel like a reunion. We're so eager to hear about everything you've been up to, and we think you're an angel. You're like a dream client. So we're just so excited to see your shining face.
So I have the first question that I ask all my guests, and I'll have you both answer. What is one thing you wish people knew about you that you don't think many do?
Great question.
You go first.
Well, I don't have much of myself online, so I think that I'm extremely private. That said, when you get to know me, I'm pretty open. I guess if we're saying this on like a perception end, because we're probably going to see this on social media, and then that's how we're perceiving each other, I guess, in this way, is that I'm human. First and foremost, I think that we're all just humans, and I'm a messy, valuable human. That's it. I'm a mom of two. I'm going to be 40 soon, in a couple months. I wish they knew that I'm shy and private, but also would give you the shirt off my back in a heartbeat. Extremely personable sometimes.
Well, I can vouch for everything that Michelle said. All of those things are true. Wow. Okay. Similarly, if we're talking about perception, and maybe people do get this about me, Michelle and I talk about this a lot. My biggest fear is that I'm misunderstood by people. And then I'll have things like co-star come up that's like, no one's ever going to understand you. And I'm like, stop giving me these messages. In short, the thing that even I'm learning about myself is that I am also kind of shy, even though I don't seem like it. It takes a lot for me to open up to somebody or share anything or be vulnerable. But once you're in, you are in. So people that break through the shell, I'll do anything for you, but it's like very small who actually gets in there. And I think a lot of what people do see is like a outer protected version of me.
I relate to that a lot. I feel like your answers are kind of similar in certain ways. Do you feel like those are things that came naturally to you, or has that developed over time through like life experiences?
Protective mechanisms of not, I think it's wanting privacy, not getting too close, and fear of getting your heart broken is, I think, what we do as we traverse life and find our belonging. I think that that's like a bit of a protective mechanism, but I think where Ellen and I differ is like, which is the yin yang, is I think I'm sometimes overly vulnerable in the name of connection. Gives me having like a vulnerability hangover where it's just like, oh God, I just totally overshared there. Like, that was too much. And so learning that there's other ways to connect without just like pouring your heart out and taking it slow. Like, there's nothing wrong with taking it slow.
I kind of agree with Michelle. I think that it is a little bit of a protective mechanism in a way, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad one.
Yeah.
For either of us. I think that both of us, especially now that we have more of an idea of who we are as people and can understand our inner workings a little bit, can see that a lot of that, like, quote unquote, protective mechanism is also kind of a gift, and it's our body and our nervous system being really wise about who we let in. It's kind of beautiful, the safety that it gives us. I think both being a little bit tentative with who gets to be in the inner circle and who gets to see the real us. And again, I think as long as we're not being like performative in masking who we are, and it's just slow to let people in, which is, I think, kind of how we both are in our own way. I think that's kind of a beautiful thing. And I'm sure it developed as a safety thing, which is really beautiful. And then I'll say one thing, because I just can't say this enough. a huge catalyst in me starting to open up and be more vulnerable and let people in and show my emotions was in meeting Michelle. And Michelle models so beautifully, whether she thinks she overdoes it or not. She models so beautifully vulnerability, and she is just heart and open heart at that. And I remember the early days of us being in business, just seeing her cry and share things with, at that point, I was like relatively a stranger. It really did break me open in the best way. And I've said this before. So I think that she's been a huge catalyst for a lot of my own inner safety and growth too.
Vice versa, and a way of taking time to think about things, because saying Ellen has also opened me up directly as well, just in how she models so much emotional maturity and taking your time to think through an option, not being so reactive, because I think a lot of my hard on the sleeve type of way I traverse life is a reactive mechanism of just like, oh, it's not always the most emotionally mature. And Ellen has taught me so much emotional maturity these few years, and I'm so grateful.
Well, how did you guys meet, and how did you go from, if you did go from friends or meeting to creating this business together?
Well, it started, we had a third partner, Erin, an absolute angel who I worked with. Actually, I did her brand Arcana back in the day, and she's an herbalist. She's just a multidimensional, just creative being. She was my client, and then shut down her business and became a web designer. And I was just looking, because I've been doing branding for a long time now. Web design isn't my favorite. And that stage of my existence, I had small children. I just wanted to brand and bounce, is how I described it. Just like wanted to do the pretty, like the branding, the building. And then I was just like, I'm done. And I was looking for somebody to take the designs that we created during the branding process and articulate them for web design. And I found this like angel online, and I was like, just knocked, I emailed her. I was like, wow, you took the Arcana branding and you made a beautiful website. Like, you got a real talent here. And I emailed her, and she's like, Michelle, it's me, Erin. I'm going to be a web designer now. So this client who I designed something for then turned into be a web designer. And long story short, she was wanting to start an agency, and she started it with Ellen. And then I tapped on the door and I was like, can I come in too? I want to be a part of this. And then that's how we met. So Ellen and I met through a third person as business partners. And then our friendship developed through being creatives together, which, as you know, is a very vulnerable, intimate process to be in together. You've gotten to experience. It's very, very intimate. So we became, I mean, she's my wife. She's everything to me.
Mm. And Ellen, how did you meet that third person who you were working with originally?
The whole story of how we came about is kind of a funny one, but I met Erin on the internet. I met her on Instagram. We just started chatting back and forth about design stuff. And then we had some overlap. At that point, she was living in Scotland, I think. And then she was about to move to Asheville, North Carolina, which is where I had just moved from and am from ish. And we had enough connections that she was like, I think she said, like, let's get a virtual coffee or something. And we had a Zoom date, and we just got to know each other. We clicked. Again, she's an absolute angel. We're both in love with her. And she started talking about wanting to start an agency and like not be on her own. And I remember those early days too. I was like, this does not sound appealing, but like, this is my new friend. So I'll listen to her talk about it. And I assumed when she was telling me about it that she was going to start it with Michelle, because I knew that they had a working relationship. And then I was like, oh man, that's going to be so cool. Michelle and I didn't know each other, but I was like a fangirl from afar. I'd appreciated her work like as a stranger. And then Erin was like, yeah, I was hoping we could start this together. And talking about fate and how things happen, I had no interest in starting a business with somebody else. I was loving being in business with just by myself. Like, I'm such a lone wolf. I loved the independence of it, but there was no hesitation. It was like I had a complete out of body experience where she was like, do you want to start a business with me and shut down your current business? I was like, yes. I was like, I guess. That was so immediate. Then it just worked out. I moved back to Georgia, so I was really close to Erin, who was in Asheville. And so we would spend the weekends planning things together, and it just all worked out. And then Michelle was like, I want to be in on it. And again, I think the beauty of Michelle's and my relationship is so many people that are in business together, they start off as like partners or best friends or something like that. And Michelle and I started as strangers and business partners. And then that's blossomed into, which Michelle put so well, probably in large part to like the intimacy and vulnerability of creating together. That's blossomed into, again, she's my everything. She's my work wife, my business partner, my best friend. Like, I think it's kind of funny that we've worked in a reverse order to get here.
I think that is often how it plays out the best. And this is even like when I'm thinking of roommates, I've had this conversation with so many friends. I always have a better time when the roommate starts out as a stranger and then we become really good friends versus when I'm trying to be a roommate with a best friend. I feel like that's when you can kind of, when you're shifting dynamics from best friend or romantic partner first into something different, I feel like that's when the lines can get blurry. But when you've already established business partner and that dynamic first, and then the friendship comes from there, I don't know. There's something more easeful in that situation.
The roommate example is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like an expectations thing. And you're right, Rachel, it's like a shift in dynamic.
It's archetypal too. I mean, they're your friend. And so when you switch them to something else, even if it's unconscious, you're putting some unconscious expectations on them. Like you said, it's an expectations thing.
Did you ever have a moment when your relationship started to shift even more into friendship where it became tricky to navigate the business, or has the foundation always stayed strong?
I had one rupture where I think that it made me nervous how much I love Ellen. And that made me nervous because once that person becomes not only your business partner, but your best friend and all these boxes, the stakes get higher. So if there's anything, it's just more of like, well, she holds a lot. So we have to just stay in a lot of communication. And we're really good about having the sweaty conversations. And once we got through like one sweaty conversation, it's just like, that's just what it is. It's just the stakes are getting higher because you mean so much to me. So that's really the thing that comes up of just like, I love you so much. You mean so much to me. You're worth the conversation to have this about because you matter. I think a lot of people avoid it and live in their heads. For us, it's always been just like we keep growing together. Our relationship gets getting bigger. So it just involves more conversation when feelings get involved because we're deeply feeling people.
I don't think I could put it any better than that. I think that Michelle's right. It's just about staying in like intense communication. And it also goes back to expectations and like expectations versus agreement. One of my favorite little thought concepts, staying in constant contact about like, hey, yeah, this is still what I want. Because when there's like that many eggs in one basket, so to speak, I think the fear is like, what if somebody changes their mind and doesn't want this anymore? What does that mean for me? We seriously do monthly check-ins that are not only about the business side of things, but also the emotional things, like what's feeling good for you? Is everything still feeling good? And there's just such a foundation of trust and love, and it has to be there to keep things.
If there's any conversation, it's that it's like, do you still want to do this with me? That's the gist of the conversation. Generally on my end, I'm the loose cannon a bit. Ellen's very stable.
That's sweet.
Like, do you still like me? Like, are we still Am I too crazy? Which is just because I love her so much. But there's also the flip of like, you can do anything. No matter what, where life takes us, there's always going to be a level of support and admiration of you can do whatever you want to do. I support you. What's best for you is best for me.
That's so special. And I was actually just talking about this with my mom yesterday about friendships and just relationships in general, also in regards to business of like, I'm open to anyone telling me anything. I will receive anything. I just need them to communicate it to me. Like what I can't forgive or what I can't navigate is if someone just doesn't say anything. Like the ghosting, the avoiding, that's where I'm like, this is not a dynamic I can be in. But if you come to me and say anything, obviously like, saying it with intention and some kindness, ideally, but the communication is really everything for any kind of relationship. I feel like without that, you can't build a strong relationship.
1,000%. That clarity piece is so important. And I think that that's such a universal experience, especially for creatives, where your mind is already like your brain spins stories regardless. Like that's how the brain functions. It keeps you on autopilot. It likes to connect dots. And as creatives, I think that you have this even greater well or capacity to create stories. And so when you get an idea that someone's not sharing everything with you, when there is a silence, or when somebody's actions don't reflect what they're telling you, and you know that something's being kept from you, I think it's even worse if you have a big imagination, because you're going to awfulize the situation and you're going to connect the dots. Even if there's not a story, you'll make it. So just the safety of knowing that, like, even if it's bad, or like, again, not something I want to hear, to your point, Rachel, but it's communicated with intention, at least I know the truth.
That's one of the biggest things you have to do in business. There's always going to be a hard conversation. And that's just how it goes. It's not personal. Even going from 3 to 2, that was a lot of hard conversations to get to that. We've really thrown ourselves in the deep end together of just being in this world. So just having the business side of having the hard conversations has really prepared us for being better friends and better communicators on when the life stuff happens, when the feelings get involved, or when we have like a day like, hey, I need a day off. Like, I'm still going to do this. I know what side of my street I need to clean, but there's a lot of humanness in this. Like, yeah, take a day, girl. There's just a level of humanness that I'm so grateful for with the communication part, even when it is hard.
And I feel like that's especially important when you're working with someone in a creative field, because, like you guys have been touching on, creativity requires so much vulnerability and also personality. And to feel comfortable working with someone in that space, you have to feel safe to show up as all of yourself. It's not like you're in a business partnership with something that's more structured. It's like, no, if you don't feel like there's this steady foundation between you guys, it's going to be hard to share what you're creating or even feel free to fully create. And you two are some of the most creative people I know. Every time we would meet and you would show me your work, I was just like speechless. Did you always feel that connected to your creativity? And how has that process evolved for you?
The ultimate question, right?
It's a good question. I'll go. I'm not going to speak for both of us. I've always been really creative, as has Michelle, like from a childhood level. It's funny taking your passion and your creativity and making a business out of it, because I think that sometimes it can sap away the little kernel of beauty that's at the center of it. And one of the beautiful things about being in this business that we've created is we are so aware of that. Just because you have a skill and you have this creativity and it's something that you can then exchange money for, I think that that can be a slippery slope. And as we've looked at like growing business, even going from one sole owned business to a business of multiple people and like continuing to grow, I think that that's something that, as far as like creative output, is always like a friend of mine thing. But one of my favorite things that being in business with Michelle has brought about in how I create is like, yeah, Rachel, you're totally right. Creating is so vulnerable and intimate. And I remember the early days of creating with Michelle where it was like, you kind of had to just be like, whatever, here it is. Here's the messiness. Here's all of me. The big part of the creative process is like making bad art. And so showing all the bad goes that it takes to get to that like one good concept, and then sharing that with somebody else was like, oh my gosh, I want to throw up, vulnerable. But again, there was so much beauty on the other side. And I think getting past that level of discomfort and the vulnerability and the intimacy, and now I can share everything, all the good ideas, all the bad ideas, freely with Michelle, and know that it's a safe space to do that, I think has made me much more confident as a creative, and probably a better creative in general, because I'm not holding back, I'm not limiting myself, because what we've created is such a safe container where you're sharing your work. Someone can push you and be like, maybe push this a little bit further, or like, no, this is good already. We're highly collaborative. It's a huge give and take, but the safety of being able to explore every option and push each other in a really safe way, I think has been hugely expansive for my creativity.
Ellen's creativity has gone like, oh my God, the amount that you've grown these past few years is just insane.
Working
And
with my idol.
that takes a lot of just like showing the messy, because I can just be like, oh my God, you're done. We learned when we were in Costa Rica together that creativity is a birthright. So I think everyone has it. It's a freaking birthright, whether or not it was a conscious of whatever, like I'm creative, definitely not. I think that I still struggle with that as an archetype of as someone that I am, because I think everyone is, and that's not just being like a non-answer. But I've been listening to this thing called determinism versus free will, because my creativity didn't come to where it is. Like I didn't grow up painting or doing things like my sister or my grandma because I was around art. But I do think that it was supposed to happen when it was happening right now. I think it's constantly evolving, but it was always there. Like everyone has it, always there. Whether it's foaming at the mouth or at the crest of a wave, and you're able to scoop it up and make something of it. I think that that's what we're doing. We're just skimming the foam of being a human and being creative people, but it's always there. It's never gone away. We all have it. It's just that joy of interacting with life, of interacting with your deepest self, uncovering something. It's the best job in the world to be able to do what we do. Like, I'm not even joking. It is the best job in the world. And to get paid for it is even better because we all have to live, but everyone has it. I just started skimming mine later in life.
I completely agree. And that's also how I feel about intuition. Like, I feel like everyone's intuitive, everyone has an intuition. It's just about tapping into it and strengthening that connection. And I actually think that there's such a relationship between our intuition and our creativity. The more I feel tapped into my intuition, the more creative I feel. And so I'm curious if you guys feel the same or if you feel any connection between creativity or intuition, or just in general, what your relationship is like with your intuition.
I think you're totally right that the two are likely just inextricably connected. And now I'm just looking at things from a timeline perspective. I think that, yeah, as my creativity started to jump a little bit more or expand, my intuition likely did as well, whether it was from the fact that, like, from the time we started our business to now, we've both also gone through a lot of huge life events and been on a lot of coaching and therapy, a lot of transitional digging deep and figuring things out in life spaces, both together and separately. So I think there's been a huge quantum leap for us emotionally as people since we've started this business, whether that's connected to the business or outside of it, or if there's just this kind of beautiful cosmic overlap. But yeah, I'd say that my intuition's probably in equal measure gotten a little bit more tuned in. Intuition is something that, and I know this is like completely your world, which is so fascinating because it's something that almost intimidates me because just like creativity takes a lot of self-trust, that's like all intuition is. If you get an intuitive hit, being able to recognize it for what it is and then like trust in that. And I think that that's something I'm still a little bit shaky in, especially as somebody who's really tapped into other people's emotions, whether it's like, is this actually intuitively something that's hitting me, or am I just picking up somebody else's energy in a really strong way and being able to like discern that and pick that apart?
Talk about intuition a lot because it's one of those elusive things. I just read Jung and his symbols because I think intuition has to have an outside source, and I just pulled it up. And according to Jung, there has to be like thinking, feeling, sensation present to even have intuition. It doesn't come in a vacuum. There's generally something that prompts it, or you're needing like to find that solution for the thing, or do I make the move or do I not? There has to be, I think when we talk about intuition and we just take it out of context, that it does have to have a situation in which it has to live in to be into it to something. It's hard to describe. So yes, I do think there's a lot of intuition that involves in creativity, especially what we do, because we're creating an environment to then intuit to something. There's the sensation, there's the thinking, there's all these feelings and parameters involved in which we can intuit to what we think that the solution is. So I think that that has helped me, and I've just come to that understanding of intuition. And I'm a naturally anxious person. It's given me a lot of just calm. It's like, no, you don't always have to be intuitive. You'll be intuitive at the right time when the circumstances and the little house around you builds around you in which you need to intuit something. So yes, I think that creativity involves a lot of intuition, but we're creating a structure, which Ellen's mind so genius at doing. She builds a lot of architecture, not only with her creativity, but with like the right questions. Like when you were onboarded, you had to answer questions. That gets our thinking mind going. Then we show you creativity that gets that brain going, and then we can get more into it.
I very much agree. It's kind of like this masculine feminine energy concept that I think about a lot, in the sense that the masculine is like the structure, and then when the feminine has that structure, it can flow freely. And without that, it's just like it has nowhere to go. The river is just a puddle, you know? So we have the structure for us to pour ourselves into and just like expand freely. And I think that that's such an important part of it. And also, there's so much to be said for timing. I think our intuition speaks to us in the ways it needs to when it's meant to. So I think that that plays into it a lot too. And then you guys are both projectors, but I always think of things in terms of human design, and me being a manifesting generator, I always need something to respond to. That's immediately what came to my mind as well when you were talking.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think what people say, like you're intuitive, is like you're a witch and you can just predict the sky and all of that changing. And I think that there's a much more grounded definition to it, and it's situational.
Being a projector, and that kind of all feeds together because yes, the like form and flow, the structure, the masculine, the feminine, that yin and yang is so integral to our creative process. But also going back to human design, even, I think that one of the ways, again, this is kind of where I struggle with intuition. Like projectors can see deeper into people than other people usually can, or sometimes deeper than other people would even like them to, which is the whole waiting for the invitation thing that, again, we've really tried to build our entire business around us being projectors, because if not, we're just going to be resentful and bitter because there's a difference between what we're able to do and what people actually invite us to do. So that's kind of the intuition thing where it's like you can intuitively know exactly what needs to happen or what somebody needs because you can see deeply into them. But unless they're asking you to help them or welcoming you in, you have to hold your tongue. And I think that that's difficult for both of us. I'm not going to pull Michelle under that bus. It's been difficult for me as I've gotten into human design. And again, so thankful that Michelle has been such a lighthouse in that world, just like she's now super into Jung and knows all these cool Jungian archetypes and shadow things. I love that I'm constantly learning from her.
That's why our job's so great, because you've obviously invited us into our world on an energetic level, as I think money is an energetic exchange. Like you've invited us in, and so we get to just
that's the structure.
We get like even when we're away from you, we're like we're always thinking about your world and how to bring all those things into a visual language. It's so fun.
You guys being projectors, one thing I always have admired with you guys is that you both are very self-development driven. Like when you guys went to Costa Rica and when you're doing different courses, and I just find it so inspiring. And also that plays into certain boundaries you have with emails and your work hours and just the structure you've created for your life in those ways. I'm curious if that came from you guys learning about being projectors or how you developed this structure in your business life and how you maintain that, because also being a business owner, it can be really hard for me to be like, okay, I'm not going to check my emails after this time. I'm not going to respond to these people after this time. So I'm just curious how that has developed for you.
I'll say it's easier with two people.
God, yeah.
She's the lighthouse and structuring this and making sure that we're not burnt out and all that. She's really created this environment for us.
Well, that's nice. First of all, I agree with Michelle. It's so much easier with two people. The amount that you'll push editorial you, that you'll push yourself versus if there's somebody else that you're then protecting. I was pretty good at keeping structure before we started this business and protecting my boundaries in my other business. But once I was working with Michelle, I think a natural part comes out of me where then I also want to protect her and protect her creativity and space and sanity. And as far as us having pretty solid boundaries with like email, for example, we have a permanent out of office and we check our email twice a week. We're not infallible. We do look. We're not perfect at it. Sometimes we check outside of those and respond outside of those. A big thing for me that I've discovered is that I like simple, simple, simple. Like I can only take in so much information at once. And I process, I think, a little bit slower than the average gal. And to protect that, and make sure I'm not just so over inundated and flooded with information and people coming at me. And like, I'm horrible at responding to text messages or answering the phone too. This is not just a one lane thing. I need a lot of alone time. I need a lot of time to reset away from just like having things come at me. I figured out early that makes me more creative and makes me a better version of myself when I do show up. So it was kind of a no-brainer to do something like that, to create this container around us where, to your point, we can just let things flow and be free and creative. And then also, if there's two of us, we have each other's backs. We're looking out for one another. And kind of to loop around to what we were saying in the beginning, I think we can take it easier on ourselves in business because you have a person who's like, hey, no, I can see you're getting burnt out. You should take a break. Like, take the day off, take the week off. I think that looking out for each other really helps build that structure and that spaciousness for us to kind of ground in business, if that makes sense.
I work all day, every day. It's really hard. It's hard for you because we're not supposed to.
Yeah.
We're really not supposed to, but it's hard. It's really hard to set the boundary. So norming that.
I just had to have a medium tell me to stop working all the time.
She literally had to. She's like, you got to stop. Don't fill your cup all the way because it does fill your cup. Like working not only checks my creativity boxes, I get to talk to Ellen. So checking a belonging box, it's checking a hard, you get to do, there's like this, what is the saying? It's like you want to do something that's like a little bit hard, that's attainable. So you get to do that hard thing. So you get to feel that dopamine hit of doing something hard, of overcoming an obstacle. So we get to do that by problem solving. So it checks so many boxes that fills you up. So it's hard to stop when it's checking so many boxes. And literally the medium told Ellen, no, but you need to. It fills you up, but you can't let it fill you up all the way to the brim that you don't have anything else to. Ellen is also an artist. To do art, to paint, you still have to do all those things. It's hard when our job's on the computer. I think that's the most challenging part.
And what do you do? Because I also can feel overstimulated and inundated with all the stuff coming at me. Do you have any practices or rituals in your life that can help you kind of like empty out from all of that?
Ellen's better at it. She's more regimented than I am, which would probably appeal to your beautiful Virgo mind.
I wouldn't say I'm better than you, but I'll go through my practices and Michelle can go through her practices. There is definitely some overlap. Yes, I'm like extremely ritual and routine oriented. I journal every single morning. And even this morning, like last night, I couldn't sleep and I texted Michelle at like 2 a.m. and was like, here I am, just like up. And she was like, what's going on in your brain? And I was like, I haven't had the chance to journal because I was so excited to get into work. And then those things just like, sit there and then I'll ruminate on them. But if I'm able to literally empty out my brain every morning and by free writing, that right there is like my most integral practice. So I'm usually really great at that. And this morning when I was driving here, because I didn't have time to journal, I just voice noted into my phone and talked for like 40 minutes, kind of like I would journal. And I felt a lot more grounded when I landed rather than being like, holy shit, I'm going to run late and I haven't had a chance to empty out my brain. And then also I walk every day after work, as Michelle does. That is so meditative and incredible. We both do a practice called Ishtara that is also a really great way of emptying emotions or processing emotions that are like kind of stuck in your body through dance is going to be my little way of describing it, but that doesn't really do it justice. And then also the fourth and final piece there is having people to talk to. What I could have said to Michelle last night when she was like, why haven't you slept? It was like, because it's Monday night and I didn't get a chance to tell you all about my weekend. And so like just like the act of verbally dumping everything out of your brain, whether it's in paper or processing by walking or through something like Ishtara or yoga, any other thing like that. Also having a safe space where you can share with people, even the silly things, and have them frame and mirror back to you. Then you're like, okay, it's been seen, it's gone.
Being witnessed is definitely my biggest grounding. Being witnessed, especially by Ellen, she's my favorite person to be witnessed by. That is the thing that grounds me the most, and movement.
Ellen, I really, really love how you explain that because I have the same exact thing where I have to journal every morning. I have to just get the thoughts out of my head. If I don't have a list, I'm always making lists in my head and I just need to like get it out. And my mom is my person who I often have to talk to. And I'm like, I just need to say these things and then we can move on. And it does help me empty that out of my brain. And I really love how you just explained it because it really put more language to that process for me in a way I hadn't even thought about.
I think it's vital.
And having your mom witness you in the thought is like your brain does something. It's like, oh, I can let this go now because it's been seen and validated.
Exactly.
Not made wrong or anything. It's just sometimes it just needs to come out.
I love that you do that with your mom too. Michelle also, as the mother between the two of us, Michelle does the same thing with her kids. We talk about it sometimes. If things keep coming up from a child, and we're all kind of children, just like if something's sitting in your brain, Michelle put it beautifully, like the act of being witnessed, saying something to somebody, like what I get when I talk to her or vice versa, or when you say things to your mom, you feel seen and understood, and then your brain can let it go rather than that hitting a wall or you saying something to somebody and them not getting it. If something's continuing to come up, it's because there's no finality in your brain and you're like, nope, it's going to perch in there.
Yeah, I think the kids even know they can tell if I'm truly listening or not. So they'll say it again because they haven't really been seen in it. I'll be working, and until like I'm looking at them and seeing them and their feelings, I don't think we can truly let it go. So it's being truly witnessed.
My old mentor, Sarita, she calls it pilot listening versus flight attendant listening, or stewardess listening. I'm not sure what the correct way to say it is, where it's when the flight attendant's talking to you, no one's listening. They're like,
Yeah.
we understand, put our seatbelts on. But if an announcement comes in from the pilot, you take off your headphones, everything's paused because you're like, this could be really serious. This could be life or death. And so her challenge to us was pilot listening and everything. Be open to this actually being important, like you're listening to it for the first time, which is all kind of a function of presence, which is what I think that we're circling around here. If you're actually present and truly listening to somebody, there is no better feeling than that.
Anxiety goes away. That's the goal, to be here right now.
I've been really focused on listening in silence, and often that gives my intuition always something to respond to because there's always things going on that when there's so much noise or distraction, we don't see or hear. And it's also deepened my relationship with nature. Something I felt drawn to you guys from the start was your connection to nature. I mean, that's the name of your brand, but how you really draw so much inspiration from nature and that your brand feels very nature based. I'd love to know how you came up with the name and what this connection and relationship is like for you guys with nature and how that plays into your creativity, your process, and your life in general.
Well, I'll speak to the name. I wish I had a more clear memory of how we came to the name. We were trying to think of something outside of the box and something that felt emotionally stimulating to us. We put down like hundreds of names. We were just free associating names. And we came to Nature and Better Nature, which is the name of our LLC. It's Better Nature LLC at the same time, but nature was just so important to all of us. It's everything. And it's such a grounding force. It's such an expansive force. You can go into nature and you can meditate. I've always been really influenced by my surroundings. Nothing feels better than being outside in nature. And also, I felt like it carried a lot of weight. It still carries a lot of weight. We talk about this where it's almost like Michelle just wrote something really beautiful. It's like trying on shoes that are too big for you. Who are we to have this name? And I kind of like that pressure. It just takes things to a different realm. Maybe it feels like there's more possibility, but it's also kind of tongue in cheek. And it's also like kind of the center and crux of everything.
I didn't have anything to do with the name. I came into the name and I was like, it's great. I love it as a North Star, as something to aspire to, as the unifying force that we can all relate to. We're all a part of nature. We are nature. What is the most universal ways in which we are human is through our living amongst it. That's one thing that can unite us in a world that doesn't always feel that at times. So it's just the reminder of why we're all here. So I remember coming into it feeling scared because I was like, oh, we're going to be scrutinized for sustainability practices. That's all my unconscious, right? Well, that's my policing of self. Yeah, that's the North Star, but do better.
I do feel like you guys really also, at least for me, it felt like you created this world for my brand. Like you weren't just doing my branding. It felt like you created a place for my brand to live. I feel like that there's this parallel between the world you create and being in nature. I always think of you guys world building even more than branding.
That's absolutely what we do. We create ecosystems.
In nature, there's a tree, there's a river, there's a whole ecosystem of things in which to build and play with. So making sure that that whole world is thought of and that you have the whole toolbox to play and pick out and build upon. It's not that that toolbox doesn't evolve and grow, that you're not pruning some things every once in a while. It's a living, breathing thing because you are in it. You give all of that life. I think that this goes even to like a bigger thing of what we do. It wouldn't be anything if you weren't there to use it and birth it to life. It's all just not a wrapper, but it would be meaningless if it didn't have someone behind it, a human playing, building, using it.
We are world builders. We create brand worlds. It's because we take this so seriously. So yes, that has like a note of grandiosity to it where it's like, we're not creating a brand identity, we're creating an entire world. It's because that is what we strive to do. And so yes, it might seem like we're taking it so seriously because we are. And there's a depth to that. And a lot of it is pulled from you and like how much you put into it. So like you as a client, Rachel, you gave us so much raw material to work with and put so much into it that it was so easy for us to just, we could see the world. It was so visceral in the way you described it. And that's kind of also that we try and tell people, like, we're not magicians. We can't create out of thin air. But when you give us so much raw material, yeah, we're going to sculpt an entire world for you and for your world and for your brand to live in. So it's going to ebb and flow. It's never going to be the static, stagnant, stationary thing. You're going to change. Your business is going to change. Your business already has so many different aspects to it. We want to build a container where you feel free to do whatever you want and are bolstered by this world behind you rather than creating something that's one note that you feel limited by.
Beautiful.
And that was one reason I was so drawn to work with you guys, is because I could just tell how passionate you were about what you were doing. And yes, I guess there's this seriousness, but not in the sense of like taking yourself so seriously. There was just this passion and drive. I feel like the seriousness allowed you to be more playful because you just love what you're doing and you want to be the best at it that you can. And you care so much. That intention and care and passion, that's how I feel about my work. And so to see that mirrored with you guys and to feel you pouring that into my brand meant so much to me, because you're not creating just for yourself, you're creating for other people. So on the receiving end, it's so special when you're getting work back and you feel like the people creating it really care about your brand, you know?
No, thank you for saying that. Yeah, we take it so seriously. We pour everything into it. And that creates a structure for us to empty ourselves into with and for, like it's co-creation.
Yeah. You're literally pouring your heart out to us. We meet clients where they're at. You get what you give. You're literally building something. We're going to get there in the trenches and build it with you. We're going to try to help you in the best way that we can. We're going to give it our all. We sometimes get the question, how do you know when it's the right one? It's like, well, it's right for you right now in this moment. There's so many options. We could live in that decision fatigue. It's just like, no, we're rolling up together and it feels really special that we get to co-create.
We loved building out your world. And again, it was a complete co-creation between the three of us. You gave us so much to work with, just raw materials. Your passion is contagious. When someone else is all in, we have no other option than to be all in with you. One of the things that I loved so much about creating your brand specifically was that we love to create illustrations and visuals and go deep into symbolism, and you just let us, like, you gave us so many options to dive deep into symbolism too, and even do research and figure out how we can make something really resonate with your people, but also feel like it is from your soul. Michelle's the symbolism queen, but to look for ways of translating everything that you're bringing into something that is condensed and very clear and is emanating this message of everything you want to communicate. Creating your brand crest was so much fun. Your business is so layered, not only in what you offer, but also like the tenets that you stand for, even creating the crest with moments of connection to oneself, the community aspect, the nature aspect, and then visually creating symbols for that and having them weave together and be something that felt distinct, but really rooted at the same time. That's our sweet spot. When we say we love our job so much and we have so much fun, that was so much damn fun.
What I remember most about your project, Rachel, it's such a good lesson of knowing the rules and knowing when to break them. We broke every rule for you. There's nothing perfect about your logo. It's so hand done and it captures the essence of you. And I think what's so great about a client like you is that you're really good at communicating and pausing and sitting with things and speaking up for yourself. You would sometimes say, like, I don't know if I'm saying it right. And we're like, you're saying it so right. And just letting yourself speak and be messy and be in that process with us is what it's all about, because we're all just responding to what we're seeing and then pushing it further. Your project is so unique. I can't wait to share it, even more of the stuff. Design is so special because it has to strike that balance of familiarity, but also uniqueness. There's a fine line of someone feeling comfortable in your world and they're welcome, but also they want newness and variety, but nostalgia and all that. I feel like your brand feels very safe because it feels familiar, but it also has a uniqueness that entices us to be inspired. So it's such a challenging job as designers to find that sweet spot. And for you, we were able to do that because we broke so many rules. There's structure to it, but then if you look closely, it's like, well, that shouldn't be like that, but it works.
And this is kind of going back to what we were talking about in the beginning, but you guys made me feel safe and comfortable to be messy and to just say what was on my mind without feeling I had to filter it or perfect it or conform to what I thought you guys wanted me to say. And I just was like, I don't know what I'm saying, but this is just what's coming out. And to know that it would be received and understood was what allowed me to be in that creative process with you guys.
We recognize that it's challenging to be in the hot seat.
It means a lot that you felt that sense of safety to just share everything and kind of bare your soul to us and show up messy, which you did. And we try and model that as best we can to clients, where it's like, hey, we're messy, real humans too. Vulnerability breeds vulnerability. We try and show up as human as possible. We're not trying to show up. We have everything buttoned up and together when we are with you. And hopefully that is part of the reason that you did feel safe to unfiltered give us everything you were thinking, but also you were so thoughtful about it. You would take time and ponder your answers. And even the parts where you're like, does that even make sense? We were like, oh my God, it makes so much sense. These are universal truths, and you're giving us just so much to work with. I think a lot of people are unwilling to be that vulnerable and share that much and be that messy, especially when they're in a position where you're presenting it to somebody to spit something out back at you. It can be a loaded situation. And I think that it's good for us to remember that. I remember the first time I had brand photos taken, I was like, oh my God, this is what it feels like to be on the other side. I'm terrified of everything. We do try and do things a bit differently.
And it comes through so much. Living intuitively wild means connecting to your true self and living dedicated to who you are at your core, no matter what. How do you feel like you live intuitively wild?
I love that, by the way. I love your business so much. I love that ethos. I love your manifesto. I love everything about Intuitively Wild, not just the visual part, but everything that you bring into it. And I think personally, it's funny. I feel like the word values can feel so like stuck in the mud or good old American values. I feel like we need to like take back the word because it's been co-opted by something that I don't really like not that I don't like being American, but you know what I mean. It feels not like the word I'm looking for, but it is values. And so I think how I would say I live intuitively wild is by getting clear and also continuing to come back to what are my core values? What's my essence here? And whether it's free journaling and finding the points of connection. So, like, my values are connection and creation and beauty and expression. There's so many things that I feel are core values for me that then I like to keep those in every single decision I make. So if it's self-introspection and also self-expression, connection with others, creation above all else, if these are my core values, taking that into every decision I make, whether it's in real life or in business, which I would argue are also kind of the same thing. And one of the things that I like to remind myself is, especially if you feel overwhelmed or over inundated and hit by things, which you will as a person and a business owner, being very careful about what you say yes to. Because one of the things I like to do, and I used to do with my coaching clients, was create value filters, with the crux at the center being, if you say yes to something, you're saying no to something. So if you're unsure of what you're saying yes to, if it's not a hell yes, and you're saying yes anyways, you're taking the energy that could be towards something else. So if you say yes to this, what are you saying no to? Is something I've kind of kept at the core of how I keep my values centered, which sounds like intuitively wild. That's the most structured. I was like, I made a framework for it, which sounds so dorky.
No, I love that so much.
The structure allows me to be flowy and free and play around and make sure that I'm not being swayed by any outside forces, and that everything I'm doing within reason, none of us are perfect, is based on how I want to show up in this world.
I think that's so beautiful. What came to my mind was integrity, which was the same thing, I feel like, as values. And it's the same type of arbitrary structure that we're creating around ourselves. So obviously we have the same values. It's knowing self and the community, but also for me right now, it's like having some type of spirituality. I think that that's the missing part, some type of devotional practice to something bigger than ourselves right now, whatever you want to call it. I feel like when I'm aligned in all of those, and I'm living in integrity of myself. I always like to filter it. Why am I saying this? Do I want validation from it? Well, that's not really integrity. I don't need to be validated for that. So just running it through my own little triangle of value filter, I think, is how you live intuitively wild. Because we do a lot of shadow work. Like, nothing in my personality now can It's all welcome. We're all around the campfire, all the shadows, all the parts of myself aren't, the most likable. They're here and we love all those aspects of self. So that's also living in integrity. It's not denying those parts of yourself, making sure you feel whole in that triangle of self, others, and something above us.
Absolutely. And I think one reason why bringing the structure into this intuitively wild framework is so important is because it brings the intention into it. You're pausing and really getting to know yourself. And so you're showing up authentically and as intuitively wild as you can because you've thought about it. Like Michelle was saying about the intuition, it doesn't always just come in out of nowhere. Living intuitively wild doesn't always just happen out of nowhere, especially in our society. We have to be intentional about how we're showing up in order to embody that. I love the structure. I love that you brought that in.
I think we crave it because there's so much of the unconscious that comes out that we don't know, that we can observe. There's going to be patterns and behaviors that we do that we don't really know why we do, but we can reflect on that. We do have the free will to make better choices next time, and understanding and loving those parts of ourselves that come out unexpectedly. I think that's the real secret sauce is that in our journey together and all my journey of self-healing and self-work and all that is when those parts of ourselves come up that maybe aren't the savoriest parts of ourselves. Is just learning, understanding what they want, what they're looking for, and loving them too. I think we deny so many parts of ourselves that we can't really live intuitively wild because we're just whack-a-moling things that don't fit into this intuitively wild framework, and it's all part of it.
That's
Exactly.
so well said. We talk about structure, which I reframed as intention, Rachel.
Yeah.
In living this intuitively wild life. But the whole point of this intention is so that you can fully live this life in all parts of you. And yeah, to Michelle's point, and we've been deep in shadow work and this healing journey, especially in this last year. That includes every part of you, not just the cool, sparkly parts that are like, I'm really hardworking and like creative. It's also parts of you that you don't like and you're kind of ashamed to say out loud. It's welcoming those parts too, instead of whack-a-moling them or bracing or cringing and constricting yourself or like doing things halfway because you only want certain quote unquote good or acceptable parts of you to be living intuitively wild. You're not fully living if you're stuck halfway.
Saying that, Ellen, I think I have a new definition for myself. It's not managing perceptions, it's me living intuitively wild. Once I let go of managing control of perceptions around me, I think that, because that's what we're doing it for, we're managing perceptions when we're trying to just make sure the pretty parts of ourselves are shown. I'm going to journal about that one.
Spoken like a true fifth line.
Are we all fifth lines here?
I think so. Yeah.
I trust both of you who've seen my charts. I want to ask Rachel too. Can you answer that question for us?
How do I live intuitively wild?
Yes.
That's so interesting because no one ever has actually asked me that question back. And I really do think it's living intentionally. I mean, honestly, it's living intentionally and trusting where my energy is pulling me with full confidence and not worrying about where it's going to lead or what people are going to think or it being something I don't understand. Obviously, I've thought about this a lot, and I think the intentionality and the self-trust and the willingness to be misunderstood and be perceived in ways that I can't control is how I live intuitively wild.
Yes. I mean,
beautifully said.
Yeah.
Yeah. We literally had a whole coaching session about this last week, like almost word for word verbatim. So props to you.
Yeah, it's the ultimate goal. That's it. Thank you for articulating that.
It is, and it's a practice every day. So,
oh, it is. Yes, it is every single day. One foot in front of the other.
Thank you guys so much. Both of you will forever mean so much to me, and I'll think of you every day when I walk into the space and see it come to life. And I am just so grateful for the impact you've had on Intuitively Wild and me personally.
Likewise. Right back at you. Thank you so much for having us and just for being yourself and for coming into our orbit and for showing up Intuitively Wild just as you are. And like you are such a light to work with. And again, we've said this probably ad nauseum, but we are full of so much gratitude to be able to do what we do. And yes, it's because we're creating, but it's because we get to meet people like you and then get to have you as more than a client, but a friend and part of our circle and community. And that means more than we could ever put words into. So we can't wait to come up. As soon as the space is open, we're frothing at the mouth to see everything. And we just know that you're doing everything with so much intention and spaciousness. And we're trying to be as patient as we can to see everything come to life.
You and me both.
I will say, look up the philosophy of determinism and free will. When I'm feeling really anxious about spaces like this, because this is out of your control, it's going to be done when it's done. It helps manage my anxiety of just like, I pull a lot of cards. It's like you can get to the bus stop, but if the bus isn't there yet, you're just going to wait. And I have this tendency to want to rush things or want things. And I know that you have so many practices to regulate yourself, but it's so nice to just know there's something larger probably at play here, that I'm just a little bit early. It's going to happen when it's supposed to happen, and trust the timing.
It's actually so funny that you bring that up, because I'm thinking a lot about what's free will and what's not, what's fate and what's in our control. And this whole process has taught me so much about that, and so much about trusting the timing and just like really having faith in the unfolding of my path. So what you're speaking to is like spot on for what this journey has been highlighting for me. So
Yeah, it feels universal. And also, it's kind of a relief to, again, release control and be like, I'm not the only person whose hands in this. It's not just me who is in control of the timing of this. That's when it's like thinking about looking back and seeing how far you've come and everything you've done so far, kind of like the growth versus gain mindset, and being like, wow, I've done so much, which you have done so much, and kind of reveling in that and taking your time to focus on that and things you can control.
Yeah.
Rather than all of the, I mean, I've never built out a space before, but even talking to people building out houses, there's like so much like Jesus take the wheel energy, because you're like, I don't know, I'm not in control here.
Exactly. That's been it. Exactly. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Intuitively Wild, the podcast. I hope it helped deepen your connection to yourself, sparked some insights, and inspired you to live intuitively wild. If you enjoyed this podcast, it would mean so much to me if you would share it with others and leave a rating and review. And please reach out to me. I would love to connect with you. I will see you next time for more magic.